Okay, everyone, welcome. We already could wish you a good Erev Shabbos, and we are right away ready to start on the bottom line of Daf Kuf Aleph Amid Beis. The bottom line of Daf Kuf Aleph. Oh, Reb Shlomo, I've been waiting for you. It's wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you. Afal pi sheyisma meya im kol zeh achakalei. B'chol shah. It's good to see you. So with Iran, who is usually here by now, and when Berish will feel better, we'll have a minyan. Okay. Boy, Berish isn't even on. Oh, he is on. He is on. Berish, are you getting closer to joining us?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I'm feeling better.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. It's true. What I just said to Reb Shlomo is true by you also. Thank you, Rabbi.
It's supposed to be having a surgery, right?
Well, yeah, in the beginning of May, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what's the date? May 7th, Berish?
May 4th.
May 4th, so it's coming...
A week from this coming Monday.
It should be a good Tisha. Should be a good Tisha. Okay. So the idea that we're talking about is that we said that something that you're able to be paida, kala yachal liftais kepadui dami, and therefore the paraduma could be mekabel tuma, because even when it's standing by its pyre, if you find a better one, you have a mitzvah to redeem it. And since it could be redeemed, and then you'd be able to eat it, so therefore it's mekabel tuma. So by extension, we would say that kala oimed li zarek kizarek dami. Whatever's ready to be sprinkled is as if it's sprinkled. Now, if that's true, then we said that if you're mefagel, both bekotche kotchim and kotchim kalim, it's not mekabel tuma. Why? Because the pashtus of the svara is that it has no shasa kosher, because as soon as it's shechted, or any one of the four avodas adam ending with zrika, it's disqualified as pigel. It's also even bahana, so it never had a shasa kosher, and therefore it's not mekabel tuma. But the Gemara says, wait a second. If it's excuse me, if you mefagel it before you did the pigel and the zrika, it was oimed li zarek properly, and kala oimed li zarek kizarek dami, so it did have a shasa kosher. Says the Gemara, "V'alpigo bein bekotche kotchim bein bekotchim kalim mitzvah lemizrika." It's a mitzvah to do the zrika. V'ibai zarek, and if you wanted, you could have done the zrika properly. And if you say kala oimed li zarek kizarek dami, so then it had a shasa kosher that was good. Yet v'ketani deina mitama tumas eichlim. Says the Gemara, "My love the pigel bezrika," that he was first mefagel by the zrika. Lie. The pigel b'shchita. He was mefagel it before. He was mefagel it in the shchita. So as soon as it became kachim, it was disqualified, and it would never had a shasa kosher. Says the Gemara, "Aval pigel b'zrika mai But if he was mefagel in the zrika, what would be the din? Since kol ha'omer l'zorik k'zorik dami, it had a shasa kosher, so hachanami the metamatum asaychlim. Aditani, what would be the only case of pigel? That there is tumas aychlim and aditani pigel b'mincha. If you're mefagel with the mincha metamatum asaychlim because it had a shasa kosher before it became a mincha, while it was yet grain, liflik b'dida, we could have made a distinction by we could have made a distinction by the kachim and kachim kam themselves. Ba'med v'amurim the pigel b'shchita, aval pigel b'zrika. But if you're mefagel in the zrika, since before you did the zrika was omer l'zorik properly, metamei tamasaychla. Says, well, you're right. It could have said that. But pigel b'mincha it's strichalei. But it wanted to tell you a chiddush that if you're mefagel in the mincha, it's still able to be metamei tamasaychla. The afal gave the pigel b'kmitza. Even though you're mefagel in the kmitza, you did the kmitza having in mind to eat it after its time. And the kaimitz kishrita b'mincha kishrita dami is like shrita, and we said by shrita by an animal, it's not metamei tamasaychla. Afilu hach metamei tamasaychla because it had a shasa kosher when it was yet grain. Hayil v'aisel shasa kosher me'ikrai from the beginning. Now the Gemara tells us a new svara, introduces a new svara. Iran, we welcome you as our 9th person. Now we have 9. It's taunting us that we have 9 people here. One more person and we have a minion for Svira. 11 lines from the top, Iran. Amar Rav Ashi, Amrisa l'shmaitze kamidur Rav Nachman. I said this over before Rav Nachman. Afilu teimalon lon mamish. That when it says lon, it was lon overnight, and even if you didn't afilu lon mamish, this is going on 2 cases. Even if it was lon before the blood was sprinkled, and here even va'afilu teimed the pigel b'zrika, and even if he was mefagel in the zrika, that he could have therefore done the zrika properly. It was omer l'zraik. But the Gemara says, I made liftais kepadi dami, we say. Because pidyon is not a maisa. It's a verbal declaration. You could be paid verbally. Kala aimed l'zorik k'zorik dami, that we don't say, because that's a maisa. The ibai parik amar. Ibai havi zorik, that if you wanted to, you could do the zrika, that lo amrina. So the Gemara asks, Meisvei, Klal Amar Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua said the following general principle. Kol shahoisa lo shas heter l'kahanim. Whatever had a time where it's mutter to the kahanim. Once it's mutter to the kahanim, ein moilin ba. There's no mila. Once it's mutter to the kahanim, then there's no mila. The kedusha went off, and there's never again mila. Because but if it became disqualified before it was ever permitted to the kahanim, then the ism ila remains. So now let's get cases. Shas heter l'kahanim was shalona if it was left overnight. But until it was left overnight, it was permitted. You did zrika, it was permitted. Vishenit meis, or if it became tamei, before it became tamei, it was permitted to the kahanim. Or v'shiyotza, or it was taken outside of the azara. It was kachim was taken out of the azara. but until it was taken out of Azara, it was permitted to the Kahanim. So there it has no Mila. What is it that doesn't have a heter l'kahanim? When you did the shchita, you had in mind that you were going to eat it after its time, or smoke it up after its time, or v'chutz mekayma, or even if you didn't have a mind of isakaris, but you had in mind that you would do it outside of its place, or v'shekiblu psulim, or if a zar caught the blood, or v'zarka es dama. So you see, there it never became permitted, and since it never became permitted, the Issa Me'ila remains. Kitani Mia Reisha, Shelana Vishenitma Yatza, where it was left overnight, where it was Tameh, or it was taken out. So the Gemara says, My lav, this is talking about Lana Mamish, that it was left overnight before you did the Zrika. And yet we say it's considered that it has a Shas Heter for the Kahanim. But it was left overnight before you did the Zrika, then it doesn't have a Shas Heter for the Kahanim. V'hacha di'i boi avizariku. But since if he wanted to, he could have done the Zrika, so it's considered as if it had a Shas Heter l'Kahanim. V'ktani de'ein moilin boy. Says Gemara, no. It means that's not what it means. It doesn't mean that. It means ru'uya lotzes. It was while it was fit, it was taken out. Ru'uya li tameh. While it was already fit, it became tameh. And ru'uya laloin. And while it was fit, it became left overnight. Avalina mamish mai. But what if you left it overnight before you did the zrika? So then it's not. Then there's mila. Hachanami demoilin. Says the Gemara, but hi. Kol shahoysa lo shas heter l'kahanim. It should have said. It's not that it had a time of heter l'kahanim. Hoysa lo shas heter l'kahanim means that it had a time of heter l'kahanim. It should say kol sheyesh lo heter l'kahanim eimoilin ba. It should say if it had a heter l'kahanim. In other words, if there was a zrika. Kol sheyesh lo shas heter l'kahanim sounds like it passed through a phase where it could have had a heter l'kahanim if you did the zrika. V'kol she'ein lo shas heter l'kahanim moilin ba miboilei. So the Gemara says, okay, we're going to back off from that which we said, that we don't say kol ha'omed lizrak kizarik dami. We'll back off from that. But don't ask a kasha from me'ila on tumah. Ela amar of ashi me'ila at tumah karamis. Are you asking us a kasha me'ila to tumah? Me'ila mishum kedusha v'lav kedusha. Mila is a question of holiness or not holiness. The basa the pakala kedusha say once the kedusha goes off, b'may hada rachvale, it can't come back again. And therefore, once you could do the zrika, we do say it's kazarik dam, and therefore the kedusha goes off, and it doesn't have mila. But here, tumah depends if it's a food or not. And just because you could have done zrika doesn't make it a food. Tumah mishum ochla v'lav ochlahu. Heicha de'i zarek. If you did do the zrika, mashv'lei ochla, it makes it a food. Heicha the if you didn't do the actual zrika, it's not a food, and therefore it's not metamet to masechlin. So the Gemara says, well, we're going to have a problem with Ashim Tali. There's an interesting case. Ashim Tali, he's here again, the unforgettable Eri Chazan, if that's his real name. His name might be Chaim Wilkinson's for all we know, but we'll call him Eddie. Anyway, Eddie thinks there was 2 pieces of meat, and he thinks he might have eaten a piece of chaylev. He brings an Ashim Tali, because 1 piece was chatas, 1 piece is chaylev. He doesn't know which one he ate, so he brings an Ashim Tali. Then his wife told him, Eddie, you ate the kosher meat. She was as surprised as I was, but she said, Eddie, I'm telling you, you ate the kosher meat. Now, what does he do with the Ashim Tali? Now the Ashim Tali is up the creek without a paddle. So let's see. Meisvei. Hamevi, remember Hamevi is Eddie B'Gematria Atbas in Swahili. Meisvei, Hamevi Ashim Tali. If Eddie brings an Ashim Tali, Vinoda Shaloi Chata. His wife tells him, no, you ate the right one. You ate the meat on the right. The meat on the right. The meat on the right was the satma meat. If before they shechted the animal, he realized that he didn't sin, okay, just send the animal back to the flock. The animal could go back and pasture in the flock. That's the opinion of Rameh. The Chacham no, he dedicated it as an Ashim Tali, and now that we know that he didn't sin and the Ashim Tali is not needed, Yira Achi Yistaiv, you let it pasture until it gets a mum, V'yamacher, you sell it, V'yiplu Damav L'Nidava, and the money goes into the kafir marked Nidava, where it is used as a carbon oil, L'Kayetz HaMizbeach. Rebbe Eliezer says we're talking about Eddie Chazan. Let him bring the Ashim Tali. If it's not for this sin, it's one of his other 100,000 sins. Says the Gemara, I didn't know Rebbe Eliezer knew you so well. Rebbe Eliezer Aimer Yakriv. Shim ain't a Baal Chet Zeh. If it's not for this sin, he's a Baal Chet Acher. It's for another sin. What happens if they slaughtered it and then Eddie's wife told him that he didn't sin? Mishinishkat noidalai. Then now he has a carbon that's not necessary. Remember, an Ashim cannot be brought voluntarily, benedava. So mishchid lai hadam yishafech. The blood is spilled out. V'abaser yizaref, and the meat is burnt. Nizr kadam, but if the blood is sprinkled and then his wife called him, that's okay. Because when it was brought, it was a suffix. So it served its purpose. So if they sprinkle the blood, habasar ye'achal, the meat can be eaten, no problem. Comes along Reb Yaisi. Reb Yaisi, Aimer afilu adam b'kais, even if the blood is in the kais, and they didn't sprinkle it yet, and Eddie's wife told him, you didn't sin. Yizarek v'abasal ye'achal. Now, what's the reason of Rabbi Yaisi? Because he holds that since it was Oimed Lizarek, Kazarek Dami. V'amar Rava Rabbi Yaisi b'shitzis Rabbi Shimon Amar, Da'amar Kala Oimed Lizarek, Kazarek Dami. Says the Gemara, that's not the reason of Rabbi Yaisi. It's not because of Kala Oimed Lizarek, Kazarek Dami. That's not the reason. The reason is because Rabbi Yaisi holds that blood, even if it's disqualified, a klei shareis renders it eligible. It's a whole different reason. Midehu taima, is that the reason? Imrei b'marav mishmei de Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina hainu time de Rabbi Yosi. This is the reason of Rabbi Yosi. The kasaver klei sharis mekachines absulun lechatchila likarev. That a klei sharis is mekadosh that which is possible in order that it should be able to be offered. Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Kahana. Bida Amar Rabbi Shimon kala oimed lizrei kizarik dami. According to the view that Reb Shimon says that whatever is meant to be sprinkled is if it's sprinkled, then why do you say the paraduma and noiser is metamet tumas eichlin? It's meant to be burnt. And kala amer l'sarf kesarf dami, it should be considered like ashes. Ashes are not makabel tama. You should say kala amer l'sarf nami kesarf dami. Then noiser para amay mitam tumas eichlin afra ba'almaninu. Amalei, yes, but chibas hakodesh, the love of kaichim machshartan. Even though it's aimid l'saref, but because it's as the prestige of kachim, it's still considered like a food until it's absolutely burnt. Question is, but can it then in turn be metame other things? Amalei Ravino l'Ravashi neheid de mahanya lehu chibas hakodesh le'ifsule degufe, that it should be disqualified itself. Likruye tame. Remember, we said pasul means it's pasul itself. Tame means it transmits tama to others. Likruye tame nami limnimne by rishon v'sheni. Can it transmit tama as a rishon, as a sheni? Then tifshet to by Reish Lakish. That would resolve a old question of Reish Lakish. Sarid shel menachos, a piece of dry mincha. No, a mincha is mixed with oil. But if you have a clump that's dry, so we said that it's susceptible to tuma because chibas hakodesh machshartan. But is it enough to be metame others? Rishon v'sheni, mining by Rishon v'sheni, or ain't mining by Rishon v'sheni. Says the Gemara, Reish Lakish was asking biblically. Here, when we say it's tameh, we're talking about rabbinically. Kima b'yalei Reish Lakish d'oraisa, whether it's enough to transmit tameh biblically. Ki kamrinan over here that it's tameh, that's only the rabbanan. Now I know everybody is really disheartened to finish this sugya and start a new sugya. I'm sorry, Mark. Mark wanted another few days of this, but what could we do? As we welcome in Berish and Yaakov Warman and Irving Fishbaum and Menachem Yemansky, Shalom Fogel and Saba and what's his name, and Mel Zachter and Yitzi Fuchs and Baruch Ian and Ruvain Pollack, Mark Franco. Itchy, it's good to see you, Itchy. We missed you. And Nachman Chapler and Dr. Block. Dr. Block, you said you had to get up 5:50, but you sure stayed the whole share. And you couldn't help it. Ben C. and Cohn, Gabriel, tell me what your son's name is.
Yisrael, this is Yisrael Epstein.
Yisrael, you're very, very warmly welcome as our youngest member to this year that's listening live. Itchy, Yitzi Muller, as he tells us that today is Daf 2301. So you know what that means, Rabbi? So that means that we have 410 blot left to finish Shas. And like you say, 410 blot, Beini ubeinacha mahi. What's 410 blot between me and you? It's a little bit more than a year. Look at Mark, he's smiling from ear to ear. Did I just hear Mark say he's not missing another night in 410 days? Okay, very good. Yisrael Fisher, Ilya Shutman, Moshe Lehman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Naftali Jablin, Abe Arbach, Shimon Klein, Daniel Rosenberg. And we have here in Shul, almost mamish, up almost a minion with Gedalia Engel and Chaim Kramer and Michal Avram and Reb Shleima and Iran and Danny Vogel and Ruvain Shannon and Elia Yaffe. So, Barish, we need you back fast. You would be a minion for us. You know that if Baruch Ian would not be in Florida, he would be here in a jiffy. Mamish. Even if the flights were a little cheaper, he would have already gotten on a plane. But now with all the gas, it's a little bit expensive. Rabbi say, by the way, you don't have to travel to all the way around the world to see the green lights. Just look behind Baruch Ian and you see the green lights on the horizon. He's who knows where he is, deep in the Amazon. Anyway, says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, the Heilige Mishnah, and I should do my obligations over here, my happy obligations, as we're dedicated by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Yaakov Zeb ben Yudaya, Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam bas Gad, Yosef ben Tzim ben Yaakov Zeb, Lefu Shleiman for Moshe Arya ben Miriam, for a great shidduch for Chaya Tzivya bas Shoshana Gittel Nushain, a great shidduch for Batki bas Sarah, by Baruch Ian Lil Nishmas Yaakov Chaim and Abba Esther bas Yonah, Avram and Shmuel HaKohen, Lefu Shleiman for Liba bas Anya, Lefu Shleiman for Yosef Shmuel ben Miriam, and for healthy Mami, wealthy baby for Ariel ben Esther Elza Rivka. Ariel ben Elza Rivka. We also want to learn Refuah Shalema for Yitzchak Mordechai ben Esther Bracha. Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel. They should have a Refuah Shalema b'Sek Shachel Yisrael. Now, Yonah Bas Miriam should have a Refuah Shalema b'Sek Shachel Yisrael. Ha'omer Harei Alai b'Machbas. Mark Frankel, who sometimes gets mixed up, he says, I accept upon myself to bring a mincha on the griddle. V'hevi b'marcheshes. And he bought a deep fried one. B'marcheshes, he says, I accept myself a deep fried one. V'hevi b'machbas. And he bought it on the griddle. Says the Gemara, look, Masha hevi. What he brought, it's a kosher carbon. He gets brownie points in heaven, and the Kohanim could eat the shirayim, but v'dei chayvasa lo yotze. But he doesn't fulfill his requirement. He has to bring another one for his commitment. However, if Mark was more precise, zulahavi b'machbas, he points at the flour and he says, this should be a machbas. Vehevi b'marcheshes, and he brings it in deep fry. B'marcheshes, this should be a marcheshes. Vehevi b'machbas, and he brings it in a griddle. Then harizu psula, that's possible because you said one thing and you did something else. The Gemara says Mark's confusion is not limited to types of menachos. He has other confusion, all the way from Confusedville, Balad, Kinwood. He has other confusions. Ha'aymer hari alai shnei esrainis. He says, I'm going to bring two yisarin lahavi b'kli echad. I'm going to bring two yisarin in one keli. In other words, I'm going to bring a big mincha. Two yisarin in one keli. V'hevi b'shnei keli. Instead, he brought one yisarin in one keli and another yisarin in a second keli. Or he said, I'm going to bring b'shnei keli. V'hevi b'klei echad, and he brought it in one keli. So again, as a tzaddikel, he did extra credit. He didn't do what he said he was going to do, so he's going to have to do that again. Ma'asha havi, what he brought, tova la bracha, but v'yidei chayvasa l'yatzi, he has to bring now what he promised. However, if he's more specific, he puts his shoe in his mouth. Eilu b'klei echad. He points to these two isarin and he said, these in one keli. Vehevi b'shnei kelim, and he brought them instead in two separate kelim. Or b'shnei kelim, these in two separate kelim, vehevi b'klei echad, hari el psulim. So then he didn't do it correctly, and it's possible. Now, a little bit of a change. Hari alai shnei esroinis, he says, now lucky for Mark, a scholarly guy like Ruvain Pollack is standing right next to him. So he says, Hari olai shnei esroinis lahavi b'klei echad. Excuse me. He says, Hari alai shnei esroinis, I accept upon myself two Yisar and lahavi b'klei echad. And then he goes ahead, vehevi b'shnei kelim, and he brings it in two separate vessels. Amru lai, so Ruvain tells him, b'keli echad nadarta. You said that you were going to do it in one keli. Even so, hikrivam b'shnei kelim. He says, "Nah, I'm bringing it in two kelim." So then psulin, it's possible. However, if he said, "Ruvain, you're right. What am I doing?" And he takes them out of the two kelim and puts it in one keli. B'klei echad ksheira. Now, what about the other way around? Hari alai shnei esroinis lahavi b'shnei kelim. He says, I'm going to bring two esroinis in two separate kelim. Vehevi b'keli echad, and he brings it in one keli. So Amru Lai Ruvain says to him, b'shnei kelim nadarta. You said you're going to do it in two kelim. Hikrivam b'shnei kelim. If he then separates them and puts them into two kelim, ksherim. Nasnu l'knei echad. If he put them, however, in one keli, then it's kishtei menachos in his arva, which the Gemara explains. He says he was going to do it in two kelim as two separate minchas with two different kmitzas, and he put it in one keli. If when he put it in one keli, it's not mixed together, so that he could separate a kmitza from one separately and a kmitza from the other one, then it's good. If not, it's not good. Now says the Gemara that we need to say both the case. Remember, we were a little bit already annoyed at Mark that he had to give us two cases. One where he said machbas and he did macheshes, or macheshes, he did machbas. And then another case where he said two and he did one, or one and he did two. Why do we need both cases? We know he's mixed up Mark. Why do we need M&M's, mixed up Mark? What do we need? Just don't tell your wife I said so. To your wife you have to be a shining knight in armor. Right? That's what it says. Reb Miller always used to say, Al tar b'sicha im ha'isha b'ishta yamru. He says, what does it mean, Al tar b'sicha im ha'isha? You have to talk to your wife. She's looking forward to that. It's part of marriage. Don't tell her the bad things about yourself. Don't tell her. Don't tell her that you're machbas, macheshes, one keli, two keli. Don't tell her the you don't have to tell her the laundry list. By the way, this is a very serious thing. Some people think, no, it has to be open. You don't have to tell her. It's better she doesn't know. Eddie says, now you tell me. Don't worry, Eddie. She doesn't know all your secrets. Yeah. Some of his aliases she knows. Says the Gemara v'tzricha. We need to say both. The ashmina not kamaisa, we get mixed up with the machbas and the macheshes. Mishum dama b'machbas v'kamaisi b'macheshes. Look, it's two different things. So of course it's going to be puzzled if he said this should be a machbas and he makes it macheshes. He did them both in a griddle, or he did them both in a deep fryer. It was one keli or two kelim. Maybe he fulfills his neder also. Because he halved it. It's supposed to be a big one, and he brought a small one. We didn't half it. It's the correct amount. So what's the difference if it's for deep fried or a griddle? I might think it's okay. Tzricha. Tan Rabbanan. We said that if he said a macheshes and he brought a machbas, or a machbas and he brought a macheshes, it's good, but he didn't fulfill his requirement. That's the opinion of our Mishnah, which is the Stam Mishnah, is the halacha. Reb Shimon says, he holds, it's interesting, Reb Shimon's opinion is that the words that he says, that does not bind it. He holds that the specification is not binding. So if Shimon he wanted to bring a mincha, he brings a mincha, he fulfills the requirement even though it's a different one. His words are not binding. Okay, we're going to stop over here. So first of all, Shabbos Kodesh, it's 10 o'clock, Gedalia?
I don't have a problem.
Oh, look at that, I can't see it.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, Motzei Shabbos, 10 o'clock.
No, it's not, it's 10:15.
10:15? Yes, Motzei Shabbos 10:15. Motzei Shabbos 10:15. And nice try though, Yaakov, playing games with me. And now we're going to count Svira, L'Shem Yichud Kutchib, and then we're going to have for the Shabbos table. L'Shem Yichud Kutchib Birchol Shchinte B'Chilu Echim L'Yachid Shem Yudke